Hi folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, I think of these reports when I tell you about, well, the fishing's been really good here and people have been catching a lot of fish and they use this type of lure or whatever. But I also feel very, very strongly that one of the biggest things I can pass on to you is ways that you might become a better fisherman. And if you become a better fisherman, will you enjoy the sport more? And so one of the tips that I can pass on, and I think this is important, is to, especially if you're going to a new area, a new body of water, if you can hire a guide to take you out for a day, a guide that their whole living is based on being out there on the water every single day. Every single day they're taking people fishing. And of course they're going to learn things that nobody else would just based on the time that they spend out there. And so I can use this very specifically because, again, in talking to my buddy Dave Swanson, who used to live in this area his whole life and now is down in Cayuga Lake, and he has taught me about this technique that he was taught by a guide for fishing lake trout. And it was something different than anything we'd ever done, and I've been passing this on, that instead of trolling or using downriggers and so forth, another way to fish for lake trout that could be fun and could be highly effective is to find the deepest water, because usually lake trout are going to be way down deep. It's colder. They need those conditions. And when you find it, you take a jig and you drop it to the bottom. You just let your line go free and let the jig go all the way to the bottom. And then once it does, you start to steadily reel it up. You actually don't jig it. We're saying use a jig, which is a lead head with some kind of a plastic or bucktail or something attached to it that you make look like something in the water. Well, in this case, you're not doing a thing except reeling it straight up. But these fish see it come down to the bottom, and they'll start following it coming up. If you stop it, a lot of times they won't hit it. Just the opposite of what we tell you about other kinds of fishing. But this is a technique that can be used in any body of water where the water is deep. In another report, I talked about how trout fishing this fall might be a little better than it's been in the past because the water conditions have remained more stable. They haven't got as low. They haven't got as warm. There's more oxygen in the water. Well, with fall trout fishing like this, any of the lakes that we have in our region that have deep water and have populations of lake trout, you might never have been able to catch these fish before, but if you would go out, find that deep water, and put a jig down and just reel it straight up and just keep doing that. You could change the speed of how fast you reel it up, maybe, things like this, but this can really work. And I'm thinking of some of the lake trout waters in there's Indian River lakes in the Teresa area. Those deep ones, those deep lakes usually have trout in them. And I can think of a couple of Sixberry and Lake of the Woods. These are two lakes that have deep water and they have lake trout. And so it's an opportunity. Millsite Lake is another one that has deep water and it has some really big natural lake trout in the water. Well, here's a way that you could try to fish for them. So getting back to my original statement premise of this report is that if you're going to a new body of water, you haven't really had very good luck fishing in the past, or it's a new place that you've never tried before, it is always a good idea if you can hire a guide. They can show you some of the techniques that work, and then just use those the next time you go out. You don't need to get a guide every day, but it really gives you a good starter operation. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.